Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Road to Millions, call number one. I'm so excited that you all are here. So, this is going to be the first call of four. So, we're going to break down over this week and next week the journey from 0 to 7 figures. And what I'm going to be doing throughout every single one of these calls is I'm going to have these lesson checkpoints where I will be teaching what I integrated, what exactly I learned, what I want you to know as we're going through the story. So, yes, I'm telling the story, but it's also very focused on this is what I needed to integrate in order to move to the next level. Because most of you know we're gonna go through experiences over and over and over and over again until it integrates, until you learn the lesson, until it lands, until you hear it, until it really you're really embodying it, right? And it's like we can know all the things intellectually, and all of you here you're intellectual, you are so perceptive, right? You get things on a cerebral level, but it isn't until we actually feel it in our bodies. So let this experience be one where you are listening, you're tuned in, but you're also feeling it on a soul and a heart level, right? And feel free to use the chat. You can ask questions. I'm thinking of doing a bonus Q&A call at the end, so we'll feel into that and you'll get access to all the replays. So if you need to hop off early, don't worry, there will be a playlist. You will have access to all of these call recordings that will be sent out via email as well. And if you're not inside the Telegram space, that's where I'm going to be sharing some more behind the scenes riffs, specific stories that I'm not going to be sharing on the calls. Just a fun place for me to share even more leading up to the rebrand reveal, which is going to be on that fourth call. So if you haven't joined the Telegram chat already, there are going to be some extra exclusive, juicy things in there that you're not necessarily going to hear on the calls. So I'll leave that link in the chat for you. It's also in the emails that have gone out. Yay! I'm so happy you're here too. Okay, so Telegram chats link is right there. And yeah, let's jump in. I'm going to be saving the chat history as well. So if you have questions or you have something that you'd like me to go deeper into, like a riff for the Telegram space, perhaps, you can drop that into the chat and then I'll open up a thread inside the Telegram later on as well. Okay, let's go into it. So in 2020, I created a Google Doc labeled Road to Millions. Somehow I had the absolute audacity to do that as a single teen mom who had been living off of food stamps, government assisted food and childcare. I was working multiple jobs while going to school. I'd never made more than about 25,000. Sometimes I think the most I'd ever made was like $30,000 in a year. But I had the delusion, I had the guts, I had the bravery to write that down in the first couple of months in business. And somehow I had tapped into truth. Capital T truth. This was something beyond, this is something I couldn't have ever known or even dreamt. And somehow I just knew. And looking back, I believe this was the first connection I ever had to really downloading guidance from my higher self, the spirit of my business. So this is the story of growing from 0 to $1.3 million in 5 years as a single mom. I don't do things traditionally. I don't send cold DMs. I don't run ads. I don't do sales calls. I don't have any complicated funnels. I built my business in a way that feels very radically simple. It feels simple, it feels clean, it's very smooth, and everything, most importantly, is run through the lens of alignment. I only do the things that are in alignment to me. And there's nothing in my business that I do that I don't absolutely love. And clients fly into my world all around the world and into my offers all the time. Over these past several years, my daughter and I have moved into this beautiful home. We get to travel the world. She just started middle school. And I've built a business and a life where I'm able to be there for those important moments. I'm there to pick her up every single day at school. I'm there to have the spacious quality time with her. And I know that everyone here, you're not just someone who wants to build a massive business. You want the freedom, you want the sovereignty, you desire to lead your life in a way that feels exactly how you want it to feel, whether it's luxurious, whether it's free, whether it's beautiful, whether it's like whatever comes up for you through the lens of that highest level of joy, that highest level of like, I've made it. I made it. That's how you want to feel in your business. So I will be sharing the story of growing my seven-figure business through the lens of higher consciousness, the lessons, the evolutions, making decisions from a place of fear, scarcity, overworking, and then finding my connection to my higher self, listening to my intuition, and making optimal decisions that are actually aligned for me. So, my intention, and I set this prayer before I hopped on for every single one of you. My intention with the Road to Millions is that this brings you back even deeper to your truest self, to your higher self, to discern the decisions that are uniquely optimal for you, and to really honor your own intuition, to honor your own guidance, not just listening to external voices, influence around you, but really being able to drop in and listen to what is in alignment to your purpose. So, most of you know me. For those who do not, I'm Tiffany Chung. I am a 2 times published author. I'm an intuitive business mentor. I'm a single mom to Alaska. I'm a podcast host. I work with entrepreneurs all around the world to grow their business through the guidance of their higher self, spirit of their business, and through the themes of power, identity, magnetism. So, we're starting from the beginning. This all started at my rock bottom moment. And the rock bottom moment for me started in a Starbucks bathroom when I found out that I was having a baby. And I had asked my boyfriend at the time to get me a pregnancy test from the CVS next door. Since I couldn't take it at home, I was still living with my parents. I hopped into the nearest Starbucks bathroom. And when I looked down and it was positive, I felt the world crashing down around me. Like there was absolutely no way. And within a matter of months, my parents found out. They kicked me out of the house. I just finished my first year at school, at college. And so now I was living with my boyfriend at the time. We already had an abusive, unhealthy dynamic, and things only escalated from there. At this point in my life, I didn't have a lot of friends around me. Everyone was headed off to college. They were starting to embark on their own lives and journeys. And here I was at home wanting to experience the life of a 20-year-old, of a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old, and I was stuck changing diapers. I was struggling with postpartum depression. The church I'd grown up to, where I was extremely involved in, like there like 3 times a week, everyone had stopped talking to me, including the youth leaders. Everything had kind of come to a head when things got really bad between her dad and I, and he ended up moving out. So here I was living alone with my daughter. I was working multiple jobs. I would take calls at night as customer support, and she would wake up during the night crying. So I'd literally like put the calls on mute and I would tend to her and then go back. And then during the day, I went to school. I did dangerous things for money. I was going to work, and I would take her to work with me when I couldn't afford babysitting. And that was like the daily routine. And one of the things when I finally realized that something needed to shift, that something needed to change, or else this was just going to get worse and worse and worse. Like anyone who's been through postpartum depression, you really lose all sight of yourself. I remember one night in the middle of the night Googling, is it normal not to love your baby? Because I literally felt nothing, nothing. Like I felt like a shell of myself. I had completely lost all sight of who I was. And in fact, like the day that I brought her home, I was 19 years old. I remember like a social worker had come into the hospital where right after I'd given birth just to make sure that she had a place to go that was safe and that was healthy. And I brought her home and I remember being like, fuck, what did I just do? Like, what the fuck did I just do? So it was rock, rock, rock bottom. My boyfriend had left. My parents had kicked me out of the house. It was just me and my daughter. And so I knew that if something didn't change, I wouldn't be here anymore. So I found therapy. Thank goodness. That was my entry into coaching and personal development and starting to take care of myself. And one of the things I did for myself against all odds was I found makeup. I became a beauty blogger. I started like practicing makeup on myself and on others. It was such a it can be seen as such a superficial thing, but it was actually one of the first experiences where I really got to like look at myself in the mirror and love and start to love and accept all pieces of me. I was raised extremely religious, and so becoming pregnant at 19 wasn't just a non-traditional thing. It was extremely sinful. There was tons of shame. Family members, extended family members still talk about it to this day. um, there were like church youth leaders who still haven't spoken a word to me since then because of how sinful and wrong it was to do something like that. So it wasn't just a non-traditional thing that happened that was like, oh, okay, that's not, you get pregnant at 19. It was the talk of the town. So alone, faced with my darkest shadows, this is the work that I started to do. And I found the beauty community online. I began to share my story and share my life as a single mom. I would share my day to day. I would make videos on how I was starting to take care of myself and really lean into being happy, being mentally healthy. I began to amass an audience. My following grew and grew and grew by the thousands. By the time I started my business, I think I had reached like 60, 50,000, something like that, followers. I'd begin to share my story. People began to recognize me. I began being invited to influencer events. I worked with big beauty brands that would send me PR packages. I remember working with Benefit and Fenty. And then at one point I was working with Fashion Nova. I went to the like LA parties and I began making an income from partnering with these brands and these companies. So this was the first taste that I could do something that I enjoyed. This was the first taste that I can make money without having to drag myself to going to a job that I hated, where I felt undermined and underappreciated. And it gave me something that I ultimately longed for, which was freedom. So this leads us to March 2020 when my business started. So the pandemic hit, I lost my day job. I was making at this point like cumulatively around 25 to $30,000 in a year, and I'd lost that main source of income. Like I still was working as a beauty blogger, but that was it was infrequent. It would depend on when brands wanted to sponsor me. So this was like peak pandemic, lost my day job. They couldn't keep me on anymore because of the pandemic. It was a startup that I worked at. And at this point, I was working part-time in the morning. Alaska was in school. I went to college in the afternoon. I posted to my feed in between. And at late night, I would stay up late juggling homework. I was studying for finals, taking care of Alaska, and still like posting to my stories because that's where some of my income came in. And I was hoping that that might become something even bigger. So I remember having a conversation while I was interviewing for jobs, and one of them was a more prominent, well-known company. So there was this woman, she was a hiring manager, and we were on this interview. And I was telling her about some of the expertise I had. I was talking about social media along with some other skills. I told her what I was doing with my Instagram platform, especially as a blogger. And she had just seen my whole face light up. And I knew the energy was so potent as soon as I started talking about what I was building and this brand, this platform that I was growing. She told me as she lowered her voice a little bit on this Zoom call. None of this was in person because it was in the middle of the pandemic. And she said, "You're gonna have to put in the same amount of energy and effort into this role. So if you have something good that's going for you that you seem to love, go for it." And I remember hearing her, but not really hearing her. And I was like, okay, okay. But I do feel like something started to shift in me. And then at this point, I connected with the only other person I knew at the time who was a coach, the only person I knew who had a coaching business, right? I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know about the coaching industry. I thought he had just kind of came up with this on his own. And he was a remote job coach. And I was so intrigued by the fact that he was working for himself. He made his own hours, he made his own offers and services. So I went out, I reached out and I was like, okay, hey, you can help me find a remote job. And instead, he said, what do you mean? You can do this. You can run and start your own business and really do this for yourself. You were made for this. And we were sending emails back and forth. I actually still have the email where he said, you were made for this. And at that point, I was like, okay, there's something here. So I took this as enough of a sign from the universe to go for it. And I started with my very first coaching package. This was 3 months of one-on-one coaching for $200. I was pricing it based on what I felt like people would purchase from me. And I remember it feeling so risky and such a stretch for me to charge $200 at that time. I never charged for anything that was like my service. Like I had been paid I've been paid money for sponsored posts, but that felt like me partnering with someone that was under their contract versus me creating something that was of my own. And I remember I actually had people tell me that it was too expensive at the time, and I believed it. We'll come back around to that and how that's a mirror. So this is the first checkpoint lesson. I want to pause right here before we go into the rest of the story. This is an energetics lesson, okay? And this is really important because it isn't just about when I first started my business. I come face to face with this for like at nearly every single level of my business. I shit you not. Like this is something that comes up over and over and over, and it's going to keep continuing to come up, right? So I was all in. I spent the remainder of my savings on my first business coach. And I was so serious about this. And I remember my friend asking, like, is this safe? Is this financially safe? Like, my parents had advised against it. They really wanted me to go back and get that job at that prominent company that I was interviewing. I was like going through an interview process. It was literally like a series of interviews, and I just pulled out. And they were like, please just go back and get that job. Like to put this into perspective, it was the peak pandemic, all right? It was like fear mongering central. We really had no idea as a society how big this was going to get and how long it was going to take, right? So this was like the peak of it. I was home from college. They'd sent us all home. They were like, you'll be back before spring break, or you'll be back after spring break. No, was not back for the entire rest of the year. This was my sophomore year. It's like my second year in college or third year in college, something like that. So anyway, it was crazy. Alaska was like in kindergarten. She was doing kindergarten on Zoom. Can you imagine all of these kids like muting and unmuting themselves and just like all over the fucking place? It was chaotic. It was chaotic. So I've been let go from the main day job. I didn't have next month's rent. And I just spent the rest of my savings on my first business coach. By the way, I am not in any way endorsing that. Okay. I would never tell anyone to do that. Don't, just take it for what it is. This is a very raw and unfiltered telling. You're gonna have to make your own, you're gonna have to discern what is in alignment for you. Do I think that that's the smartest thing to do? It depends on your energy, right? Like it depends on how you're intending to go about it. But in that moment, I just knew that if I didn't, like, I'm a very all in or all out kind of person. I don't do anything half-assed in my life. So everything I do with intention is with intention. Like if there's is something you see me doing, I'm pouring intention into it. If there's something I'm not doing, like if there's something that I just do not do in my business, you know that it's because I don't want to fucking do it. So I don't do anything I don't want to do. So in this moment, I was like, okay, I know me and I have my own back. And it wasn't even a question of whether or not it would work. Okay. I was operating from some kind of 2020 delusion that I cannot even tell you. I cannot even tell you. So that's what happened. I invested in my first business coach. I had spent all my savings. I had no money for next month's rent. We were in the middle of pandemic, single mom, have my daughter with me, could possibly be kicked out of the house that I was renting, or the bedroom that I was renting by the next month. And here's where we were. I knew I just needed to get myself in this place in order for me to take a massive leap. So here's the lesson. There's always a moment before the big leap where you can double back or you can double down. This happens all the time. Okay. There's this moment where your power is building and it's building and it's building and you can feel it. And a lot of people, this is where they start getting kind of scared. So they're like, okay, 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 I need to take a step back. Wait, wait, bring it down, bring it down. Okay, let me take a step back. Okay, okay, now I'm good. And then they turn out and they walk the other way. Right? We see this with celebrities, we see this with public figures. It's like they're at the height of their fame and then boom, like they're succumbing to whatever it is, drugs, alcohol, the society, Hollywood, right? It's too much to hold. It's like this power is bubbling and doubling and compounding and expanding. And it's like you have to be able to learn how to hold it. You have to learn how to hold your power. So there's a moment before a big leap. And this is why I'm talking about this, is because this didn't just happen when I first started my business. This happens at every single level. I've always had moments where I can double back or double down. In the Telegram chat, I shared a voice note where I shared this quote that says, "A ship at harbor is safe." But that is not what ships are built for. You are not meant to play in your safest environment. You're not going to get anywhere. Okay. You're not built for a safe, risk-free life. If you signed up for this event called Road to Millions, there is nothing about you that is meant to stay safe. You want an extraordinary life? You want an out of the ordinary, above average life? You want to make above average money? You want to be well known beyond the average everyday person that just goes to work and waits a year to ask for a $1 raise? You want to make a big fucking impact and have big influence beyond what others around you are doing? It's going to require you to operate on a level that is extraordinary. It's going to require you to operate on a level and take action and do big, risky, delusional things that other people are not doing. It's going to require you to show up beyond what you know, beyond what is safe, beyond what is expected, beyond what's ordinary. So you're going to have this moment before everything changes where you decide whether or not you're going to double back. So you still have that time. You still have that moment. You're like, okay, I can still go back. I can still come back down the ladder. I don't have to go all the way down. I don't have to go all the way through, right? It's like the little kid that's like, okay, I want to go on this water slide, right? But you've got to climb this ladder to get up to the top of the slide so you can slide down. So when you're at the top steps of that ladder, you can decide, do you climb all the way back down the ladder, which you can do that at that point, or you keep going, which means the only way down is through the slide. So this is power, personal power at its height, and you can actually feel it. You can feel it in your body, right? Some of us will name it as anxiety, and some of us will name it as like nerves, right? Whatever we want to call it. That is power coursing through you. It is excitement. It is arousal, right? It's being turned on in a completely different way. And because this is so big, okay, because it is so expansive, what we can do is shut it down, or you play with it. You play. You let it move. You let it integrate into your body. You actually embody it and feel it in real time. You don't actually need a whole list of tools and things to do. Like, you don't have to spend hours in breath work and getting Reiki and doing all the things. You don't have to go and take like I don't know, medicine out in the middle of the forest and throw your guts up in order to just feel your fucking power. You can just feel it. You can just let it in. You can just embody it. You are your best. You are your best psychedelic. You are your best medicine. You are your body's greatest tool. And I love all the resources that we have. Use your resources. Use your tools. But your body is the most powerful asset that you have. Your relationship to your body, your relationship to your higher self that's guiding you, because we can also use all the tools. And trust me, I've been there, right? Crystals up your ass, like whatever, right? Oh, I've been there. But if it's coming from this place of disconnection, if it's coming from this place of save me, tell me who I am, make me feel better, right? It's not actually going to do anything for you. So you can hold this. You were designed to hold this. And you can create more that comes through for you while you continue to expand. So you can double down and go all in, all your chips in. Every bone in your body is playing full out. You're not just playing to not lose. You're not just, well, I hope I don't crash and burn. I hope I don't end up with this. Like, you're already like putting yourself in this state where you want to protect yourself from disappointment, right? We do this. We all do this. It's how far can I go to feel my power, but let me make sure that there's this protective bubble, because being rejected hurts and it's scary. And if someone says no to me, that hurts. I feel things. Yes, it's going to hurt. There's risk involved, right? You're going to feel a mixture of things. But when you're playing to win and you're all in, you've decided to double down, you're not entertaining any doubts in your mind. Yes, you recognize that there might be a situation where you don't get what you want in the time frame within logic, reason, whatever. Like wanting to show others so that they feel more comfortable with what you're doing. But you get to play at a bigger level. You are at full force. When you're at full force, there is no what ifs. You are not entertaining the doubts. Yes, they're there, but why would you use your imagination, your God-given imagination, where you can create whatever the fuck you want in your reality and fantasy land, and you're spending it trying to protect yourself from disappointment? No. You know how to deal with it if it ever gets to that point. You have the resources, you have your body, you can feel your feelings, but right here, you're all in. You're committed, you're serious, you're not backing out, you're 100% there. Most of us do not make decisions from this perspective. It's, well, I'll try it, but if I don't make $1,000 after I've invested by tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., just it's not working. And then you write a letter, right? It's like, I will go to the point where I want the thing that I want by the time that I want it yesterday, actually. But if it's not here, I'm pulling out. It didn't work. So this is where I got myself. Okay. This was the momentum I had to create and source from within me by the grace of God. And as much as I could, right? I got there as much as I could. And I love this version of me that was so naive in the best way. Like, I didn't know how challenging it would be. I just knew that this is what I wanted and I would come and get it. And I sourced this version of me and this state of power at every single level whenever there's time for me to expand, right? Because at one point, investing what, like couple $1,000s into my first business coach seemed like the most. I was like, send money. Like, I was like, oh, I was so uncomfortable. And I just felt so like, yeah, I had to process that hard. But now it's like I've spent multi six figures on it on coaching. I've sent $25,000 in one payment. I've sent like more than that. Now it's like it's beyond, right? But I've built a capacity to do so. And here's the thing. Here's the lesson. Okay? This all is the lesson, but here's the kicker. The universe isn't going to bet on you if you're not going to bet on yourself. The universe is not going to set the energy. It's not going to set the energetic precedent. Okay? That wavelength that you want to be on, that you are in, you have to source it. And what we do is we try to look for it in this thing and in that thing and in that community and that mentor, right? Like, I tell my clients all the time, like, this, look, you're not here to source from my magic. You're here to tap into your own. And whenever I can sense someone is trying to, like, they're in that energy where it's like, tell me, save me, just guide, it's like, no, 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 let me bring you back to yourself. It's the only way this works. It's the only way. Okay, so the universe is not going to set the precedent. You have to source it and show up with it to the universe, right? Imagine if you're going to go and meet the king and the king requires you to have, I don't know, like a chunk, like a block of gold that you have to bring in order to meet the king, whatever. So you get to the king and you don't have anything to bring, right? You don't have anything to, like, oh, here, this is what I'm going to match you, right? Like, let's just say the king's going to match you like 2 blocks of gold to your one, but you don't bring anything. So it's like, I don't know how to respond. I don't know how to come in and support you because you didn't bring anything, right? The universe is the same way. It's like you have to be the one to source it, and then the universe is going to respond. The universe is a responder, okay? The universe responds. So, and the universe, here's the thing, the universe doesn't mind waiting. You want to wait? You want to wait a couple weeks? You want to wait a couple months? You want to wait a couple years? You want to wait a couple decades? You want to wait till you're 50? The universe is like, okay, that's like a little blip of time in the universal standpoint of things. Like, you want to wait? You want to wait? Okay, we'll wait. We'll wait. How long do you want to wait? Your whole life? How long are you waiting? But when you take a big leap, you create and source that momentum forward, the universe springs into action and goes, oh shit, she's ready. Let's go. The universe meets you there. The universe matches your frequency and your energy. Okay. But if you cannot get there on your own, how are you going to ever expect someone else to do it for you, or for someone to help you get there? This is the work that you are meant to do on your own. Just want to, okay, I feel like that looks better. Okay, so I'm going back. So in this era, I was running sales calls to book clients who'd found me, known about me on Instagram. I was posting to my feed. I was doing videos. I was posting stories. I was posting to Facebook. That was pretty much it, right? So sales calls were like my thing. I did sales calls back to back on the phone, on Zoom. And I remember I had gotten my hands on this sales script, and I followed that sales script to a T. I believe that there was a correct way to sell, and I was just going to figure it out, right? I was going to figure it out. Like, there must be a correct way. There must be some way to ace this. There is a lesson, and this was the lesson that I had really learned the hard way. So I spent all this time trying to ace sales. I was trying to emulate what I had learned, what I'd been taught. I was working at this point with like very masculine and non-conscious teachers. And when I got my hands on the sales script, like, I really wanted to get like an A plus on it. I just wanted to do it right. And I thought if I just did it over, like, if what I felt like was the right thing based on how it worked for other people, because there must be a right way to sell, and this must be the right way to sell because the person who sold it to me had made all this money. So if I excelled at it, then eventually I would just get clients, like, they would just happen to me, right? I viewed it more as like a transactional thing, and it was almost like I was trying to solve an equation. So I had the action, but I wasn't in deep alignment. I didn't fully know who I was in my identity. My identity wasn't solidified. I didn't have a lot of conviction. I was expecting that sales script to do the work for me. I was hoping that copying and saying the right words, if I just said it in the right way, if I purchased it from the right person, it would bring in money. After all, isn't that what all the successful entrepreneurs and leaders that we had seen were all doing, right? Like, I was copying the sales script. I bought it from them. It worked for them. Why wouldn't it work for me? That's how it worked, wasn't it? So here's the thing, is it brought in the money, and I made my first six figures in 8 months. And I was trying a variety of different things. Like, I launched different offers. I was working hard. I tried different strategies, all and the strategies worked, right? Like, they brought in clients, they brought in the money, and people came in. They came in from Instagram, people who had already known me, people who were finding me like right then and there. I had days and days and days of sales calls that would be like no after no after no. And then eventually they started to say yes. So there would be like two no's in one day and then one yes. And then there would like be a full day of yeses. And then there would be like two full days of no's. But over time, people were starting to say yes. So I started to build my one-on-one roster of clients. And it started to feel a little bit more okay that people were saying no, because I already had these clients I was working with. So I got a better understanding of what sales were and why someone would say yes versus why someone would say no, and everything in between. I got better at really articulating what I did, like what I was doing, right? So over time, that 3-month program, which was $200, which is so insane. Like, I don't have like I yeah, it's insane. Then it raised to 500 and 1,000 and 1,500 and 2,000, and people were signing up. So here is the lesson. Here's the checkpoint lesson that I want to stop at right here before we move forward. There are tons, especially here, like now, like even more so now than in 2020, right? There are programs upon programs and courses and guides and trainings that will teach you what to do in order to generate results. A very like, this is the way, and this is the next step, and this is the result you get. And they work. They work, right? That's the truth of it, is they work. So here's the lesson from a conscious standpoint is when you're simply enacting a strategy from a very transactional perspective, masculine meaning like you're just taking the action, it's always going to be significantly less powerful. It's always going to be a more watered down version of the results that you could have, right? It gets the jobs done. The results are likely temporary, or the results continue to come in, but only if you continue to do it in a very specific way and not allow yourself to evolve, right? Or it drains your life force energy. So, another thing that happens is this is also the best way to attract the wrong type of person into your world. When you're just trying to get it right, you're focusing on the action. You're hoping that the action, this strategy, this sales script, that social media platform, whatever, has the power and has the magic. So you're putting all this weight into the strategy. You're putting all this weight into the tactic, into the blueprint, into that framework, into that course that you bought, hoping that once you put it into the world, it'll just do the work for you to get the results that you want. And nobody has, it's not mandatory to build an aligned conscious business. I can give you a list. You can come up with a list of billionaires who had built their business in 600 different ways, and it all worked. And they made a lot of money and they made a huge name for themselves. There are lots of millionaires and billionaires living in fear every single day that their money is going to go away, that they're going to lose it all, that it was all a fluke, it could never happen again. So you get to decide, however, at the end of the day, how you want to feel in your business, right? It can be operating from wounding, fear, scarcity, overworking, unaligned strategies. It can be always trying to top the next month, the next milestone for it to just feel better and better and better and better. But when you're in your power and you are in deep alignment, anything works. Anything you do works because the magic isn't in the strategy. It isn't in the action. It's not in what works for so many people, right? It's not in that 8-figure mentor that you follow. It's in you. The power is always going to be sourced from within you. That is why the heart of my work and the rebrand that I will be sharing is power, right? It's power. It's getting in alignment with your most powerful version of you, directed by your higher self. It's magnetism. It's attracting results to you versus going out and feeling the need to hunt them down. It is communication with higher consciousness so that you're not just operating from your limited worldview and logic, God forbid, you see an expanded bird's eye view. You see because you're connected to the spirit of your business with your higher self who sees past, present, future, who is connected to your overall vision, the energy of your vision, the energy of your movement, because the spirit of your business chose you. Out of everyone in the world, it chose you to work with, to partner with, to co-create with. And because of that, that means you have something that is an energetic match that allows the spirit of your business to come through you in your work, right? Because when you are so aligned and you're so convicted in what it is that you are doing, any action and any strategy you decide, even if it's one that's not very popular or well known or done by others, it works because the energy you're putting into it, the alignment, it works for you. Right. And I want to say here that messaging and sales skills, like all of this is still extremely important, right? It's important to invest in, it's important to build that skill. However, the conversation of energetics is just as crucial. This isn't a conversation about whether you build the skills or have energetic alignment. It's both. It's learning to play with both, right? It's the dance of both. It's building the identity and the power and sourcing that from within yourself and also opting for what's in alignment with you and investing your time in the messaging skills, in articulating yourself, in sales, right? I love talking about sales. Like this is the work that I do to bring it all together is we talk about sales from like a high level perspective. And then we also do the energetic work so that it's like turning on the stove, right? Like it's like something can sit there for hours and hours. Nothing is actually going to happen versus you turn on the stove and it just supercharges everything, right? Now the food is actually boiling and it's marinating and it's cooking and it's sizzling because you have that power source that's actually building it from the inside out. And we also can't like this is our work, right? Like how you articulate yourself, how you show up, how you sell, how you take up space. We also can't just be in alignment and then hope to sit in the forest and hope to wake up to $1 million, right? And we also can't take all of the action and just throw it around day after day, yet none of it is actually guided from our intuition. So this is the balance. When we're not in alignment with our power, the strategy doesn't work, right? Or it works, but it isn't sustainable. So when we're not in alignment with our power, who we're being, and the vision of the movement, it gets skewed, right? So this is the dance. Okay, moving back into the story. So clients would book a sales call, they would say yes, right? Some would say yes, they would move into my program. Some would say that they would get back to me, who would try to get me to lower the price. And some of them would ghost me, some of them would say yes and then no, someone would say no and then yes. Like I got all of it at this time period, right? And I was creating all these different services for all these different clients. I was the social media coach, I was social media manager, I did social media engagement, I did content creation at one point. I had like lowered the prices for some clients. I had like there were just so many conversations at this time, and it was very much like taking in anyone who wanted to work with me, right? And then there would be clients that would complain and say, well, I don't have 10,000 followers yet within a matter of weeks, right? Or their engagement hadn't shot up overnight. And I was starting to feel so drained and so exhausted. And even though I was working so hard and I was working all day and I was working into the night after my daughter went to bed for my clients who were growing, I had more and more clients at this point. Some of my clients had gone viral. Some of them had like some of them were going through like really big really big like peaks in their brand, but it wasn't feeling the way I thought it would feel. So here is another, this is the last checkpoint we're going to get to today, growing to six figures. I kept thinking the work just wasn't as easy or as fun as I thought it would be. This is, I guess this is what building a business would be like, right? And I just had to take it on the chin. And growing up, I'd seen my dad overwork to create success. And I had this belief, especially as a mom, that I had to sacrifice time with my daughter. I had to sacrifice time in my life in order to make money and in order to make my business work. And at this point, I really thought that it was all just these circumstances that were happening to me. Like, this is just how it was. This is how things were. This is how making money is. This is how building business was. Because up until this point, I'd worked at a day job that was exhausting and tiring, right? And now I was making my own offers and my own hours. And I was like, shouldn't I just be grateful? I'm about to hit six figures, right? Like my work is just meant, I guess it's just meant to feel like this. So I had these moments up until this point where I had some big cash months. I had like 20, like a 10K month and a 20K month and a 30K month. Like I kept raising my prices. And this is where I was really starting to do more of that money work, like the money mindset work, where I was like, why is it that I feel like I am not worthy of receiving money? Right. And we'll talk more about this in Thursday's call. We'll go deeper into money. But I was starting to do this work where I was like, why do I feel like this is just not like I like money would come in and then either like I wasn't able to hold it or it just felt so uncomfortable to even think about and talk about. So this is really where I started doing a lot of the money work, which again, we'll get into. But I saw that money was coming in, right? And it was fluctuating, but it was coming in. And at this point, I was like, okay, I know that I can start to make money, but a lot of it felt like it was almost like a fluke. It was almost like it was coming in, but I couldn't really fully hold it. I couldn't even fully even really like feel it. So what I didn't realize was I was drained, I was frustrated, and what really was happening was I was out of alignment. I was out of alignment. And when I began to realize this, this is when things began to shift. My subconscious thoughts, my beliefs, they were all being reflected to me into my reality, right? That it wasn't just some client that hired me that ended up in my world was either mistreating me or they were just like crazy. I was starting to see that everything was a mirror. It wasn't that clients were being overly needy. I wasn't setting clear boundaries. I was people pleasing, hoping that the people around me would continue to like me so that I can continue being the good girl, the obedient daughter, and continue carrying out that archetype and that identity that I had been taught to be. It wasn't that I had all these clients that weren't happy with their results. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to turn clients away. I didn't know how to have strict standards in the clients that I worked with. It wasn't that they didn't value the work, that too, probably. It was that I was giving excuses to them and letting them lower the price and extend payment plans beyond what I was comfortable with. That was me. It was all me. And it wasn't that clients got better results in a one on one program that just linked back to the belief that they needed extra support from me in order to do well, right? And once I dismantled that, I had an extremely popular group program. It was an 8-week accelerator. That was like an evergreen group program that I ran on Tuesdays. And then I opened up another time on Thursdays. That was always like sold out. And that was what was on the other side of this. And it wasn't that money only came from working hard and sacrificing. I just had these subconscious beliefs about working hard and about sacrifice and about how I would make money. And this linked back to my beliefs that about how business would look for me, especially as a single mom. I was still operating in survival mode. And it wasn't that clients were extremely demanding of me. It was that I had said yes to everyone. I had made services for them that weren't even on my list. That linked back to the belief that from a place of scarcity, that if I didn't help everyone, that they would leave and I would never make any money. That this would be as good as it ever got. And if I said no to money now, who knew when it would come back again? Right? Like when I was operating in like true survival mode and doing dangerous things for money and making money in all these different ways, it was like if someone wanted to pay me, someone wanted to pay me. And I was like, I was gonna find a way. I was gonna find a way to do some odd job and like make sure that I had cash, right? Because then it meant like I didn't have dinner. It meant I couldn't pay for my bills. So it wasn't that I had to stay stuck. It just linked back to the thought that I couldn't evolve, I couldn't shift, I couldn't pivot. Because what would happen if I lost all the success I had already created? And I realized a very hard truth that I was attracting everything, that it was all a reflection of me. And it was all based on what I believed about myself and money and the world. And this is when I really began doing the money work and really began understanding the subconscious mind and attraction. If I had attracted it, I could attract a different reality and I could create something completely different. So at 8 months, I had surpassed $100,000 in cash And while I was over the moon and I was like, I've made it, and I was like beyond overjoyed, I also didn't love where I was in business. I was outgrowing the social media coach role. I was outgrowing what I was teaching. I was outgrowing the way that I was teaching it and the way that I was working. I was outgrowing my offers and my clients. I was doing multiple sales calls a day at this point. I had gotten booked out on sales calls for like the next 2 months, and I ended up stopping them completely. That was one of my first decisions that I really made in alignment with myself, where I just knew I couldn't keep doing these sales calls. Like, I just couldn't keep doing them. I didn't enjoy it. And I needed something to change. I was hand-holding clients. Clients were ghosting, some of them stopped paying. A lot of them didn't take my work seriously because I wasn't actually filtering who I was working with and who I didn't want to. But luckily, I had so much data that I was able to really take in and recognize what I enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy, and what I was good at and what I didn't want to do anymore, and what was draining me versus the work that was actually lighting me up. So this is where I started learning about manifestation and the energetics and the attraction and feminine flow. This is where I began to pivot and shift into being a business coach. This is where I was making the most money at this point in my business, and I decided to completely switch gears. So that's what we're going to cover on day two on Thursday. I will be sharing the pivot growing from six figures to multi six figures, my first $0 launch, income plateaus in my business after I had made 30K months and how I bounced back, launching my first program, which was Business Activation Academy, and how the first couple launches had really, like, looking back, they didn't fail, but that's how it felt at the time. And how I ended up building over $400,000 of revenue just from that program alone. So that's what we're going to get into on day two. We're going to dive deeper into the energetics, wealth frequency, how I expanded my ability to hold more money because I'd made six figures and I felt guilty. I'd made six figures and I felt wrong. I made six figures and I felt off and disconnected and like I couldn't hold it. So there was a lot of work that I did and some really key lessons there from expanding and learning to hold, learning to carry more and attract more from an energetics perspective. So that's what we're getting into on Thursday. Let me know in the chat as I take a sip of water how you're feeling at the end of day one. And I'm going to open up a thread later. If you're in Telegram, make sure that you're inside that space to just capture some reflections and questions and see what we can really riff into inside that space. So make sure you're inside Telegram. Yay, excited, feeling extremely aligned being in here. Yay, so glad you're here. Madeline said so good. Loved hearing your story. Was tearing up and then laughing in a couple minutes. I love that. Activated, activated, activated. Yay, yay, Mercedes. Amazing. Well, I'm so glad that you all are here. We're just getting started. We're going to go into six figures and multi six figures and the wealth energetics and attraction conversation on Thursday. Next Tuesday, we're going to talk about going from multi six figures into seven figures. So really, I would say like three, 400K to a million. So that's going to be on next Tuesday. And like, what did that scale and push look like from like 400 or 500K to $1 million in sales? Because there was quite a bit that shifted during that time. A lot of energetics work and um, a lot of outgrowing and learning to really listen to my voice and share my truth in a different way. And then next Thursday, on the 4th of September, I will be revealing the rebrand for the company and the new company name, and really sharing the evolution of how that dropped in, how it came to be, and what to expect. I'm also going to be launching my new membership. So if you're loving this already and you like, by the way, there is a really juicy bonus right now if you jump into the membership. I Okay, I'm not going to share all of it. I'll share a little more as we go on, but if you DM me, if you just DM me membership, I will send you a voice note. I'm crazy. So I respond to every message a with a voice note in response because it just feels right for me to do so. Again, I don't do anything that I don't love doing. And I love sending voice notes. If you know me, I think I've probably sent a voice note to like every single one of you. If you've reached out for something. So if you're curious about this membership, it is a broadcast membership. It is I'll tell you that it is like weekly, multiple times a week drop-ins from me inside a space where you will receive these activations, riffs behind the scenes of my business, trainings, tangible trainings that you can go and implement right away in your business. But really, it's like it's bringing you back to yourself and your discernment inside your business. Like everything I'm talking about here inside the Road to Millions, and the reason I'm even sharing this is because I looked outside of myself for years, leading all the way into my business. Like it was like, what's that person doing? They're successful. Okay, hopefully they can tell me what to do. And then if I copy them just good enough and I get an A+, then maybe I'll be successful too. That was essentially what was happening, right? And you see that in this story of let me buy this, let me buy that. Like I can't tell you how many like guides and little like communities and things that I entered until I found my connection to my higher self. Your higher self knows past, present, future. Your higher self or future self or truest self, however you want to call it, like there's a version of you that is at the highest level that knows you and knows all parts of you and knows who you are and who you came to be. This is your purpose. This is your destiny. This is your soul connection. This is your connection to the spiritual realm, right? So when you are able to tap into guidance from this version of you, you're being guided, you're being directed in a way that's like if you have all of these options and all these roads, your higher self is like, go this way. This is optimal for you. This is actually what's a fit for you. Right. I literally just did that earlier this week on like two platforms that I was thinking of joining to host like checkout pages, like very technical structure type things. And the fit for one of them was like on a scale of 1 to 100, it was 20%, and the other one was 90%. And I was like, all right, there's like I was even in communication with one of them and they really wanted me to join their platform. They had seen what I was doing in my business and we were talking, and I completely like stepped away and I went with this different platform because that was the guidance that I had received, right? It's like I trust that guidance, and I'm also developing and building out the ability to receive guidance and to be and like to move, right? To also trust it, surrender and move quickly into what I feel like is most right, right? Like guided by my intuition. There's no logic. There's no like it actually logically it made much more sense and would have actually saved me a lot to go with that other platform, but that wasn't the message I was getting from my higher self, right? So learning to very neutrally, not just, oh, okay, this is what's coming in. Okay, I'll try, like actually like or like, oh, this is actually secretly what I want. So I think this is actually more of like a 90%. It's like actually learning to decipher neutral guidance from your higher self is so valuable. So that's a lot of what we're doing inside this membership is you're going to get these weekly multiple weeks touch points with me where I'm dropping in, you're receiving these activations, these riffs, these behind the scenes where you really get a taste of the heart of my work. The heart of my work is higher consciousness meets wealth and power through your business. And your business isn't just a business, it's a movement, it's a revolution. Most of us here are women of color, right? Like we do things differently. And being in a space with women of color and being taught by a woman of color as a woman of color, it just hits differently because there is an understanding, there is a like witnessing that goes beyond what you can ever feel in any other space, right? Especially because most of us are the first in our lineage to be doing this work, to be healing and alchemizing and taking everything that we're learning from the past, from our ancestors and the past lineage into our work, right? We are dismantling systems of supremacy and of oppression to create sovereignty, to create freedom on our own terms. This is the work. This is our work. And so inside this membership, that's really what you're receiving is I'm speaking from like I'm channeling really most of the time my higher self to your higher self inside this space, inside this portal where I'm dropping in. I'm speaking to the visionary leaders. I'm speaking to the entrepreneurs who are conscious, who are heart centered. These are trainings, these are activations. This is light a fire under you. This is like getting you into the best energetic state possible in order to go and take massive action in your business. This is like a strategy you can go and implement right away. This is a big bold move that I made in my business and behind the scenes. These are like trainings upon trainings upon trainings where I'm pouring into the space that you get access to on top of all of my micro programs, master classes, the ones that I've already created and recorded, including all the ones that are to come. So if you want full details on this, you want to hear all the details, you can still get in right now in early bird pricing, and that lasts for another couple of days. So this is a great time to jump into the membership. By the time I launch it, the price is going to go up. So you do get a couple bonuses being inside Road to Millions and jumping in now. Send me a DM with the word membership and I will send you all the details. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited for it. Okay. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you on day 2, where we're going to dive deeper into wealth energetics and growing from 6 figures to multi 6 figures. Like we're just getting started. I'll see you on Telegram, and this replay will be sent out very shortly as well. All right. Thank you for being here. Mwah. I love you all, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.